I would now like to invite Jayantha De Silva. Jayantha heads the ICTA, which has been vested with an important role of drafting out or charting out the digital roadmap for the country. They have started on a very ambitious program. Jayantha, can I ask you to talk to us about your plans, about how you are going to go about with the digital journey for Sri Lanka?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Aravind, for the wonderful presentation. As you know, we have been working with Aravind for a long time also, and we know how India has been successful, and we have emulated India's digitalization to a great extent because we have a simple equation here. If India can do with over 1 billion people, why can't we do with 21 people? So, so that's what we think, and things are easier for us compared to India. Now, as Arvind was saying, the digital ID or the ID for that matter initially plays a big role in this whole process. We have been using a digital ID, ID from 1972. So it's a long time. We have transformed into many forms of the ID. But as you know, the present ID, we have some holes, unfortunately, in it. So since then, for a long time, Sri Lanka has been trying to build a digital ID. As we took over this project just about 6 months ago, we decided to go and we discussed with India exactly how they have done it. We learned a lot from India, other project, and we felt that our initial direction should be to build a digital ID and a plastic ID. Now, when it comes to the ID of Sri Lanka, the digital ID, we would have the normal plastic ID, very simple ID, plus the digital ID. Now, we would, the biggest problem in ID, as you know, I don't want to explain much, is actually duplication. So we have built the 10 fingerprint and the iris into the digital, into the ID. So we feel that first of all, know your citizen by the government. The government should know the citizen well. So on the know your citizen direction, we hope to start the ID by about the second quarter of next year and complete within 1.5 years. So this is a huge task that ICTA is taking over with the Department of Person Registration, and we will hope to finish it by about 1.5 years. So once the digital ID is in place, most of the things that Aravind talk or discuss we would also be able to accomplish in our country. Now let me talk about technology. Now technology as a driver for economic growth are we taking it seriously as a country, or have we taken that seriously in the past? Obviously, many projects have been done, but unfortunately, most of these projects have not given the desired results in our country, unfortunately. So what do we do? Now, just to tell you, it's none other than the president himself who has taken over the technology ministry. And obviously, we know the present government is quite serious about it. So the initial thing that was done under the technology ministry was all technology related entities or all technology related organizations were brought under the technology ministry. So ICTA goes under the technology ministry, and also the Department of Persons, that is the ID, the telecoms, 10 organizations, I don't want to waste time, have come under technology ministry. So that will ease up in the integration of technology in bringing technology into the common man. Now, why am I saying common man? Now, we all know that in the past, most of the technology-driven projects or many development projects were concentrating on most of the urban areas. Now, India is supposed to be the most, uh, uh, the number one country in the world, which is actually non-urbanized. When I say non-urbanized, we all know that it's a rural sector dominates most of the part of India. And you'll be surprised that Sri Lanka comes fifth in this game. We are the fifth most ruralized country in the world. So unfortunately, again, most of the projects that we didn't go to the rural community. So the basic responsibility of a government is to ensure that all citizens benefit equally on any development or any facilities that is provided by the government. So this time, the present government is very, very keen to ensure that it goes to the rural community. Now, I don't intend going into the digital uh, identity card, because I think Aravind discussed this, and it is the same, almost the same benefits we are envisaging for our people to benefit once the digital ID comes up. Banking, but I would like to add one thing when it comes to rural. A lot of people may not know. A farmer or a rural people find it very difficult to open even a bank account in Sri Lanka. So we also, like in India, wants to have our own payment network. So once the digital ID is in place, uh, commencing or establishing payment network is going to be quite feasible. And that's one of our prime functions that we have identified in our technology drive. Now, when it comes to the other major problem or other major challenge that we have seen is the availability of telecom facility to the rural. Now, we discuss a lot about 4G. We discuss a lot about phones where we boast and say we have 107% a penetration of mobile phones in this country. But if you take geographically, how we see, we have only a little over 50%. So most of the rural areas do not have 4G facility, which is a must. So under the government program of Gamata Sannivedana program, uh, we intend going into the rural sector, taking 4G for all concept. We have in this particular budget, 15,000 million rupees have been assigned for the development of 4G in our country. So this is one of the biggest drives that the telecom sector is going ahead this year. The second one is actually uh, when it comes to the knowledge parks. Now India is quite strong in this. India started this long ago, and we all thought that India is going in the wrong direction at that time, to be very honest. But you would see now India has gone a long way in the technology education. So we are late, but we are starting 5 technology parks, and in adjacent, we are starting 5 new universities, technology universities, to work hand in hand. Now, all these technology parks are going out of Colombo, namely Galle, Kurunegala, Anuradhapura, Kandy, and Batticaloa. So ICTA's proposal of having clusters with the technology parks and the universities will come into effect. So we are starting these technology parks at least to complete 2 of them in the coming year, and the other 3 to start and ensure that they are coming the next year. So this is a huge drive again, bringing technology into the common man and also going into the village. The third one that we learned from India, which Aravinda would vouch, is the legal framework. We know that when you go digitization, there are many rules and regulations which does not support digitalization. Some of the activities, unfortunately, are very selfishly owed by some of the organizations in the traditional way, which I don't want to name. Some of the functions, they think that they are the only guys who can do it. Banking is one area, unfortunately, I have to mention. So opening up banks, opening up of payment system needs a lot of legal, the changing of the legal framework. Now, ICTA has been in the forefront of coming up with a Data Protection Act, Cyber Security Bill, electronic signature, and also working with stock exchange on the electronic payment systems. So these are things that we learned, and I personally, in the last couple of months, was mainly my time was focused on bringing the legal framework to support these modern technological areas for which otherwise we would have a problem. So this is also an extremely important factor, which again, I was advised by the Indians, my friends, who said that, one of the biggest problems they faced in the electronic or digital card was one of these. So these are areas that we have worked very hard within the very short period. Now, when you go for rural sectors, uh, uh, technology diffusion is one of the biggest aspects or areas that we have taken quite seriously. We have considering health, education, transport, and we are considering health, transport, and education and agriculture as key areas where we are going to use technology to bring to help them in their core business, that is to help farmers in technology. We have already computerized land within 2 major districts like Kalutara and Colombo, where a lawyer could actually stay at home and look at the folios, do all the transactions from home. So we are bringing a huge amount of technology into the normal citizen, and that will pave the way for the development and the development of the country, as well as giving access to the common man. Then the other thing that we were talking or we were concentrating is the convenience factor that we could bring the normal people. As you know, we in Sri Lanka, we all know that to do a small uh, transaction with the government, sometimes it takes a day or even more. So by bringing a lot of technology onto your doorstep, we would be able to do most of these things remotely. So this is again the digital ID would help us in the data exchange layer, which we call the changing data exchange layer, which would help to coordinate major departments into one layer. So these are the areas that we are concentrating very much. I would be able to discuss or ask questions, but just like what Aravinda has told, and we have seen the success story given by Aravinda, hopefully within 2 years, we would be able to show you some of these things practically happening in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayantha. Thank you very much for outlining the digital journey that Sri Lankan government is planning to follow, of course, spearheaded by the ICTA. May I remind all viewers that you could send in your questions, put it in the chat box, and we will take as much as we can during this panel discussion. I can also want to tell everybody that there is a poll which is where the questions will come up, which you are encouraged to participate in. It will provide useful input to the Ceylon Chamber going forward.